Lately, I have been seeing this trend of Sigma male movies coming up everywhere. And being the millennial I am, I had no idea what this term meant. So I was looking at all the films that are being mentioned as the Sigma male movies, and it's like American Psycho, Fight Club, Taxi Driver, and of course, Drive. And I thought, damn, I love all these movies. I gotta know what this means. So, I used this thing called the internet.
What the fuck is the internet?
And I looked it up. And apparently, a Sigma is sort of like an extremely isolated and introverted alpha male archetype. Someone that separates himself, or at least feels separate from society at large, and kind of does their own thing. And then I thought, damn, why does that sound so relatable and appealing? So besides embracing it, I also noticed that the mood, the feeling, the soundtrack, and the story of Drive was getting more and more popular, and I thought this was actually a good thing, because back in 2011 when Drive came out, I didn't really know a whole lot of people that knew about the movie, or even would want to bother to watch it, so I'm actually enjoying all of this new interest towards the movie Drive. See, Drive released in 2011, and not even a year later, I remember I actually bought the Blu-ray of this movie on a cold buy. I'd never seen it before, and I didn't know what it was about, but I heard very good things from a couple of the movie reviewers that I'd followed on YouTube at the time, and something about the look, the vibe of the movie, it was drawing me towards it. I didn't know if it was an action movie or a drama, and I think at the time I honestly didn't even really know who Ryan Gosling was. Yeah, I never watched The Notebook, I'm sorry. And it was an interesting time for me, 2012. I didn't really know who I was as a person or what I really wanted out of life. I remember going through a really bad breakup at the time, and the future seemed absolutely terrifying. In a way, I was in one of the most isolated moments of my entire life. But this movie captivated me and took me away to a completely different dimension. It felt like I was lost in a strange neon ambient electronic synthwave fantasy and told, in all honesty, an extremely simplistic and easy to follow story that doesn't really do anything that out of the box narratively, but it's more about the way that the story is told and the emotions it's meant to make you feel. I always say that I am a character over plot kind of guy. If you give me a rich, interesting character that I can enjoy watching and being around, you could just literally have them hanging out at a beach for 2 hours and I would probably like it. To me, a plot can only be exemplified by its characters, and with Drive, it truly is a character study of this man whose name is not even given in the movie. He's just credited as the driver. And him sort of being that empty vessel makes sense for the entire film. I'm going to deep dive a little bit into the movie, so this will contain spoilers. This is just your forewarning, but we're going to talk about Drive. Ryan Gosling plays a character who is extremely isolated and keeps to himself. He doesn't say more than he needs to, and he keeps his answers short and to the point, which is the same way that he treats his professions. It seems like his only skill in life is being an exceptionally good driver. He makes use of this by working as a car stuntman on movies, doing car flips and other action scenes. When he's not working on films, he also helps out at an auto shop run by this guy named Shannon, played by Bryan Cranston. And finally, his side gig comes in the form of him being a hireable getaway driver for people committing crimes and robberies. The driver isn't a criminal himself necessarily, but he is deeply involved with the world of criminals. The opening scene is an extended look at his methods and his skill helping two criminals escape from the police, but the entire scene takes place from the point of view inside of the car. It's not an action scene, but a scene that shows us just what kind of person he is, what kind of driver he is, and how he performs under pressure. But the juxtaposition of him doing all of these high-speed, dangerous, and adrenaline-inducing things is that outside of that, he isn't really anyone. He doesn't seem to have any friends, unless maybe you count Shannon. His apartment is bare and empty, nothing on the walls, and he walks from place to place with a blank or somber expression. He has a skill, but he doesn't have a sense of fulfillment or connection. Even a getaway drive is just going through the motions for him. Things change though when he has a few run-ins with his neighbor, a girl named Irene who is living with her son Benicio. There's a few opportunities he has to help her out. They have a little bit of a conversation, he gives her a ride home one day when she needed it, and this sort of starts to spark some life into him. You kind of feel like it's something that he'd never experienced before, even something as simple as having a nice drive with somebody. Not doing a job, but just riding with a beautiful woman next to him and having someone to smile back at him. I see Drive as a movie about loneliness, about how being alone can drive you into darker things, no pun intended, about the socially awkward way that you interact with people when you are not used to affection. A lot of people complain that Ryan Gosling barely has any dialogue, or when he does speak in the movie, it's in very short bursts. And I think this was absolutely deliberate and needed for the film. Why would he have good speaking and social skills if he's never around anybody? At least not anybody he can actually be close with. Irene shows him a world that he could only dream about, a world that he is not a part of, and even more so, a landmark in the relationship that takes time and dedication to get to. Irene and her child Benicio make it feel like a true family dynamic. So not only would the driver find love, but a love that lasts in a family that he had built, but it's all just a fantasy. He knows it's a fantasy, but he enjoys every bit of it while he can and never moves in disrespectfully or forcefully. He never makes himself be the man of the relationship. He just goes with the flow, but there is also this feeling behind his eyes that he knows it's all going to blow up in his face at some point, and it does. Because Irene is not actually single. Her husband was in prison and he gets out, and he's played wonderfully by the actor Oscar Isaac. I love this dude. And one direction that I love that this movie goes is that his character is not an asshole. He's a man that's made some mistakes, but for all intents and purposes, he truly loves Irene, and he's also a good father, which just makes the pain even worse for our character of the driver. Sitting in his apartment, all he can think about is the way that this woman and her family made him feel, but he is not a part of it. He is separate, and he knows that her husband wants to do better, while the driver himself is the one who currently is still kind of a criminal. Everything goes wrong when Standard, who's played by Oscar Isaac, is being threatened to pay back money to a gangster. The driver, wanting the overall well-being of the family, offers to be the getaway driver, but during the heist itself is when things get fired up. Standard is shot, the money stolen is way more than it was supposed to be, and belongs to the mob. And suddenly the driver realizes that this is the world he lives in. That family and connection was a fantasy after all, and now the only thing that he can do is try to stop them before they can get to Irene. I think the true carnage begins with the elevator scene. First, driver offers to give Irene the money if her and her son want to escape with it, but she slaps him for even attempting the offer after what happened. Then the two get into an elevator with another man who was sent there as a hitman. And then there's a slowed down, almost dreamlike sequence that happens as the driver moves her out of the way and kisses her. I don't think that the kiss here was meant to be him taking something from her. If anything, it's part of the distraction to get him closer to the hitman, but I think that it also serves as a goodbye to the world that she brought him into, if only for a short time, and also an apology for what she is about to see, because moments later, the driver disarms the man and literally stomps on his skull until it caves in under his boots. And this leads me to the infamous Drive jacket. His stuntman jacket has a scorpion logo on the back, and he even mentions the story of the scorpion and the toad later in the movie. The idea is basically a story that a scorpion and a toad both need to cross over the river. The scorpion asks to ride on the toad's back since it can't swim itself, and at first the toad refuses, saying that the scorpion will sting him. To which the scorpion replies, "Well, that would be stupid. If I sting you, we will both drown." And so the toad accepts. But halfway across the river, the scorpion does indeed sting the toad, and they begin to sink. The toad asks why, and the scorpion says, "What? You knew I was a scorpion." The moral of the story is that we are slaves to our very nature, even if that nature harms us in the process. A scorpion cannot help but be a scorpion. Driver is that scorpion, or at least that scorpion is what he's trying not to be. In the process of heading towards the safety of the other side of the river, he can't help but bring devastation, and even before getting on the ride, he knew that he would never make it to the other side. There's also a scene where the driver puts on a mask that he used from one of the movies that he was in, and this can be interpreted a few ways, but I think of it as him embracing a darker persona, but also not wanting it to truly be him. Since when he wears the mask, he actually goes to commit a straight-up murder. Yes, it is of a mob boss, but it's not in self-defense. It's directly and completely premeditated, and maybe the mask is a way to allow himself to go that far, taking on the appearance of somebody else, and allowing that part of him to truly be out. The finale of the movie has him making a deal with the final mob leader to make sure that Irene and Benicio will be safe. Nobody besides these two know about her connection to the robbery. Then, after surviving a knife to the gut and killing the mob boss, the driver leaves the money behind and drives off into the dead of night. Maybe surviving his wounds, maybe not, but it's kind of up to us to decide how far he goes and what becomes of him. He gives a final phone call to Irene earlier, thanking her for what she allowed him to feel, but he never returns back to his apartment. Ultimately, he did everything within his power to try to make sure that she was safe, but at the end of the day, tragedy still struck her life and family. As I said, the plot of Drive might be simplistic, but the character study of the driver I do find to be a tragically fascinating part of this movie, alongside the pure atmosphere that this film gives you. The electronic score, the nighttime shots of LA, and the long somber shots of characters reacting to things, the subtle shift in their eyes and their facial expressions. This is a movie all about mood, and some audiences had a hard time connecting to it because I think, and this is going to sound super pretentious, I'm sorry, but I don't think that a lot of people at the time understood it. Part of that could have been that it was marketed to the wrong crowd. Your average Fast and Furious enjoyer might not be connected with a movie like this quite as much. I truly do think, though, that this is kind of a movie for loners and outcasts and people that feel extremely disconnected from others. I also think that there's a ton of positivity to be taken from it, because the driver takes the steps necessary to try to make the right decisions. He wants to become something more, even if he is a scorpion. The idea of putting yourself in danger, sacrificing pieces of yourself, and taking initiative only for the benefit of others rather than yourself, well, that means there is something inside of him that's hard to explain. Maybe he can be a real hero, a real human being. And if you thought that sounded super cheesy, it's because I used lyrics from a song that's in the movie, Real Hero. It's kind of like the whole point. Listen to it. And when you're done listening to it, go watch Drive. If you have seen the movie, if you enjoy it, or if you hate it, let me know down below in the comments. I'd be super curious to hear your thoughts. Also, please give the video a like and a comment to help it in the algorithm. If you want to see more movie reviews from me, please let me know and definitely give it some interaction, because that will help it do better, which will be more incentive to make more movie reviews. I'd love to continue to talk about all of my favorite movies on here with you guys if you would enjoy it. But other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.